Hello and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome back to another Safeopedia webinar. My name is Samantha with Safeopedia, and here it is our mission to support you, the EH&S professionals, operational folks, and any safety-minded individuals with free information, tools, and education. I want to extend a huge thank you to all of you for attending today and for creating a safe workspace for us on a daily basis. Today, we are proud to present Sorbents 101, Understanding MBT's Products, Grades, and Application. The Safeopedia webinar has been made possible today by Meltblown Technologies, or MBT, a preferred manufacturer member of AD Safety Network. AD, together we win. Today, I have Scott Bakewell here from Meltblown, and he's going to go over all of the different absorbency types, product designs, and material grades so that you will know how to best identify your sorbent needs and protect your facilities. I'm very excited to have you all sit back and relax. So Scott, let's jump into it.
Great. Thanks, Samantha. And thanks everyone for being here today. We're going to walk through some really simple information just to kind of get you thinking about sorbents or absorbents and spill control in your facility or on your premises. And I think a lot of times, and I hear this from our distributor partners, it's not very high on anybody's list. And reason being is because nobody's thinking about what happens if a spill occurs. So this will just get you thinking about some of the products you may need, you may already be using, or maybe you can use more effectively. You're going to see through this, there's a little bit of redundancy, and it kind of goes back to the simplicity of the product, just the different grades and qualities, and what we can help you with as we move forward. So really, when you start to think about sorbents or absorbents and how they work, it's important to know that ours are 100% polypropylene. The unique characteristics, they will not absorb water unless they're specially treated. They float and they're less dense than water. Chemical resistance can be achieved with adding a surfactant or a detergent essentially to the polypropylene to allow it to be able to pick up all fluids other than or including oil-based and water-based fluids. Important to note with MBT, and I like to mention this now, we're a tariff-free zone. All our products are made here in the U.S. We're based in Sandersville, Georgia. All our raw material is US based, so we're not having any tariff issues. I like to bring that up because it seems to be something that comes up a lot lately, especially with safety products or environmental products. Absorbents can be broken down to really three categories. You know, there's the universal product, which you'll see around a plant floor or inside. It's usually gray and absorbs all fluids. So that would be anything oil-based, water-based, chemical, um, detergent, anything that could be leaked, a universal would pick up. Oil only is simply that. It's oil only. 99 times out of 100, this product is white and it absorbs oil-based liquids only, so anything petroleum-based. It'll repel anything water-based or any chemical or solvent. A lot of times you'll see or you use oil-only product in outdoor applications. Now, it may be in an environmental cleanup. It could possibly be, again, at your facility, maybe in an outdoor application like storm drain containment or possibly holding ponds or something like that. Hazmat's a little bit unique, folks. A hazmat product is usually color coded in our case by the product being green or yellow. It does everything a universal would do. In fact, it is universal in nature, but it's color coded. A lot of times, customers want their employees to know that if there's a spill happening and there's a chemical, if the absorbents are different chemical, that means stay away. It could actually be hazardous other than just a slip and fall. Just note the product's exactly the same as a universal. It's just color coded for hazmat. So getting into the products themselves, the universal absorbent is hydrophilic. It will absorb water and oil-based liquids. It'll absorb anything that's liquid-based. That's a better way to put it. The applications are usually for placing them around machinery, maintaining walkways or under pipes or fittings. You want these products in place to catch, contain, and pick up any kind of liquid that could be on your floor or in your area, causing a possibility of a slip and fall, or possibly getting to a waterway or a drain, right? So when you walk around your facility, look down, you're going to see you're probably using something in this category. Oil-only absorbents are hydrophobic. They'll absorb oil-only based fluids only, as I had mentioned earlier. They're ideal for industries where machines leak lube and oil-based liquids. That's one application. Sometimes we see them, in this case, used indoors, and I kind of wonder on occasion why people are using an oil only on the floor when solvents could be leaked at the same time, but we do see it. And keep in mind, they float. They're lighter than water and they can sit on top of water and pick up oil from water. So out of this category, 99 times out of 100, you're going to see it being used outdoor or in marine waterways. Hazmat folks, and in our case, a lot of our colors are yellow. Our primary color is yellow, but we also make green. Built to absorb any dangerous chemical liquid, water or oil based as well. Good to have on hand in lab settings. And again, as I mentioned, yellow or green for visual warning. And again, another example would be if you're in a factory and you're in an area where there could be chemicals contained in drums and maybe a forklift hits one. 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to have a chemical spill kit in the area. So you're picking up and containing that spill, but also telling people stay away. It could be a chemical spill over an oil-based or a solvent spill. Folks, we put this in here because it's important to kind of understand at the end user level what you're buying and what you're using, and if you're using it effectively. And I'll get into that a little bit further down the road in this presentation. But a lot of times we find when we're out with our distributor partners visiting end users that they're using sorbents, but they may be using something that's too heavy, in some cases too light, or maybe even not the right way, which in the scope of things isn't a huge deal, but it's an opportunity for you to dial in your spill control program, use the proper products, lower your costs, and get more effectiveness out of it, or to be able to use them more properly over a longer term. But these are four really different types of cover stocks that we use and that we tend to talk about on every visit. And I'm going to go through these quickly, but give you an idea. When we start looking at standard dimpled Meltblown, that's basically a bonded product. It's the polypropylene is bonded together. It has a perforation down the center. There's no cover stock, and we refer to that as dimpled, or in some cases bonded. But it's really that's the workhorse, the lighter grades, the stuff you put down if you want to just pick up fluids or contain areas where there could be overspray or leaks on their machines. Spun bond, or SMS, is a spun bond melt blown cover stock. And a lot of times we put spun bond on both sides and melt blown in the middle. This is an ultralight, strong, and durable cover stock that resembles polyester and it's low linting. So if you were to touch a spun bond pad, it has a really smooth and silky feeling. If you were to scratch your hand over it, you're going to see that it really doesn't lint up or flake. It's there to add a layer of protection. In a lot of cases, it's for areas where low linting is key, or maybe there's going to be an area where there's heavier vehicular foot traffic. This again adds a layer of protection and durability so the product can stay down You can put parts on it. You can, drive carts over it, walk over it, and you're not going to damage the absorbent. Fine fiber, again, it's another type of cover stock. It's a soft, super absorbent. It resembles tissue paper, and it's added again for durability, but it doesn't have the durability that a spun bond does. So a fine fiber to me would be used in heavier applications where maybe there's a lot of leaks or a lot of oil spilling, where you need durability to be able to hold the product together and pick up a lot of fluid. Lastly, folks, there's a spun bond fine fiber where, in our case, a lot of times this is going to be a camouflage type pattern of cover stock on a fine fiber melt blown pad. This product, again, is really built for durability. A lot of times we see folks use it to line their workbenches or around banks of machines or between banks of machines, I should say, where a lot of overspray is happening to catch that overspray so folks can be walking in that area without worry about slipping and falling. So there's all different types of grades or cover stocks to choose from. A lot of the time when we do plant visits, we'll see that customers are using maybe a standard fine fiber product when they could possibly be using just a dimpled product, maybe downgrade a little bit if it's just an area where there's no real hazard of slip and fall, but more about just picking up leaks from the base of machine. Sometimes we go and we find that where areas of banks of machines, they're using a dimpled, where if they use a spun bond fine fiber, they'll have better efficiency and they'll have the ability to let their people change product less frequently. So there's always a little bit of a dial in. Usually when this happens and you start using these effectively, you're going to see tremendous amount of cost savings over time. So again, a dimpled melt blown sorbent are also perforated. They promote which promotes waste minimization. They're dimpled basically to bond layers, but it also creates fast wicking and allows the fluid to be absorbed quickly. A lot of times too, just as a note, the perf's there to tear on the perf, folks. So if you need a smaller piece, you're going to have a half of a pad or a smaller piece of maybe an absorbent roll rather than rolling or putting the whole pad out just for cost effectiveness. Kind of going back through fine fiber, soft, super absorbent cover stock, grips to the floor and stays in place. It's a high quality, fast wicking, great durable absorbent. Um, these are our best sellers, folks, to fine fiber. We have a lot of manufacturing customers around the country, a lot of heavy manufacturing where durability and absorbency are both a factor, and this is where you'd probably go to a fine fiber. Spun bond, folks, exceptionally strong. Ultralight cover stock, very high tensile strength to prevent tearing. It's low linting, where loose fibers could be a problem if they don't have a cover stock. And it's great in areas of foot traffic. A lot of times I see this product actually used to lay sensitive material on, and especially in aerospace where they might have to put a tool or a part on it and abrasion could be a factor. That's where cover stock, a spun bond cover stock would be an ideal product. And lastly, in my favorite, the spun bond fine fiber. In our case, we do a camouflage pattern. Um, the camouflage pattern, of course, has the cool factor, but it also hides the grime. So people don't see it as um, apparent as maybe a normal pad would be. So they tend to leave this type of pad down and get better use out of it. That cover stock is very heavy. Again, you can roll carts, forklifts, people, anything over this. It's not going to tear. It stays in place a very long time. It adds to your operational efficiency. Folks, when we talk about sorbents and absorbents, the different styles or categories, it breaks down really to six. There's pads, rolls, socks, boom, pillows, and kits, right? And in each category, there's several variations, especially with pads and rolls, because we have everything that I just mentioned in different sizes and weights. And we do that so we can recommend or have the customer pick the right product for their application. And again, kind of going back to what I said a minute ago, a lot of times we just see customers go for the heaviest thing out there for whatever reason, and they don't necessarily need something that heavy. That's where we come in to help kind of guide through proper sorbent usage. So pads, folks, are um, they're made to use in areas where there are leaks for wiping down equipment and covering areas that you need to. So when I say that, covering areas that you need, it's specific. It's not very big. In our case, the pad is a 15 by 18. You might want to put it under spot leaks, maybe a hose leak on a machine, valve leak, something like that. But in areas where it's specific, and you could select from many different grades depending on how much you're leaking. Rolls can be torn to fit whatever space need and used like a pad because they're perforated two ways down the middle and cross perfed as well, which will create 15 by 18-inch pads, believe it or not. But in our best case with the rolls, customers like to use them on walkways, over workstations where they may be using it to line a bench, under drains and spouts if you have a bank of IBC tanks underneath the spouts, and then also create sort of a walkway. So in this case, in this photo, and we used a high visibility cover stock here, and it really looks pretty good. In this photo, you have a bucket that's containing some sort of fluid that's leaking from a pipe, but also if you can imagine machines kicking off coolants and overspray, they land on the roll. They don't get out any further onto the floor, and you can also walk on it and avoid slip and falls. Socks, folks, are exactly what they sound like. It's a sleeve filled with polypropylene that you use to stop leaks from reaching the floor. So in cases where machines may have a pan underneath to collect any kind of little parts and scraps, but also oil and coolants, those pans overflow all the time. You'll usually see a sock banked up against it to create some sort of dike. A lot of times these are the best used sorbents because customers tend to forget they're there, right? So they're down there for quite a long time, and they could be used for a long time. They're a great added value. They're a great added product to any kind of spill control program. In our case, we use a spun bond outer sleeve that gives it additional strength as it would in on a cover stock of a pad. It helps avoid tearing, and we actually really fill ours very, very well. A lot of companies out there, they don't put a ton of material in, and not that they're trying to cheap out, but they feel like if you put too much in, it doesn't flex properly. We actually test our socks in-house on every run to see about the flexibility and how they can wrap around machines, and they're very, very solid. Um, and good products. So it's something you could talk to your folks about internally if you're not using socks at this point. Pillows, simply that, folks. They're just, again, it's a spun bond pillowcase filled with chopped up polypropylene. A lot of times we use ours as an accessory in a spill kit, but you'll see customers use them usually under valves that are leaking. So if you can envision an IBC tank, once that valve is open, they don't really shut properly ever again. You can put a pillow underneath that to catch that occasional drip and keep the floor nice and dry. They're also great in tight spaces, so to stuff them in between maybe two machines where you have overspray coming down into a centralized area. Um, again, for spill kits, we use them because that's a great product just to pick up and dab big areas of fluid quickly as you're trying to clean up a spill that wasn't planned. And lastly, folks, spill kits. I mean, we have spill kits in every size, whether it be a bag spill kit, small container spill kit, a large overpack spill kit. Keep in mind, spill kits are in place for emergencies. They're designed for quick deployment. A lot of times when we're walking through facilities, and I'm sure you folks know this as you're running these facilities, the spill kits are there. They look like they haven't been open in a while, and when we spin the lid off, you'll see half of it's gone. A lot of times guys will go in there quickly and maybe grab 5 or 6 pads, go back to their machine rather than going to the regular sorbent stock. They kind of go through the emergency stock. You want to keep your spill kits full and ready to go in case something like a hydraulic line breaks or something. You have a big spill that you need to contain right away. You want to be sure those spill kits are full and up to date. Not a huge investment, but they're there for a reason. So check your spill kits. Folks, not going to spend a ton of time here, but we have a whole marine sorbent category, mostly 5 and 8 inch marine boom. It's used to skim oil from waterways or to absorb and skim oil from waterways. Same thing with our oil only pads and sweep. And these are all specific really to marine cleanup. So if you're in that business, you're familiar with this. If you're not, you're probably not going to use it anyway because it doesn't really match your application. There's the whole the whole thinking of choosing the right sorbent. We put together some bullets, and you'll receive this presentation later on. But choosing the right sorbent, it's not a complicated decision. It's just some things to think about. So you want to really determine the type of liquid to be absorbed, whether it's an oil, coolant, solvent, or water. You'd go with a universal gray, oil only, white, or in some occasions blue. And blue would be used only if it was um, an application where you'd have to contrast against white. It's very infrequent. We don't use blue that much anymore. Aggressive chemicals, you'd probably go to a hazmat or a yellow or green type of absorbent. So those are, determining the type of product to use, and then you want to identify your absorbent application. Is it a wiping, dripping, or heavy foot traffic? And in that case, it's going to be a pad, roll, or possibly pillow or sock to keep oil or coolants or water from a walkway. Could be a barrier backed product or heavy needle punch for areas where it's very, very heavy traffic and a lot of fluids. We have that product in rolls, mats, and rugs. Or emergency response, right? If you're only talking emergency response and not regular maintenance, it's going to be a spill kit. Okay. And then lastly, determine the amount of liquid to be absorbed. Is it a small amount, medium, and large? A lot of end users don't think about this. They just go for the heaviest weight for whatever reason. And a lot of times, folks, and we all know this, not very expensive. This isn't a huge part of your operation in any operation, whether it be small, medium, or large, or very large, manufacturing operation. This is probably not your biggest cost or even close to it. So they tend to try to go with the heaviest product out there. And a lot of times you're throwing product away prematurely, so it's not completely saturated. You're throwing it away, not getting good effective use out of it. You're throwing cash out. So again, applications for spill control, any fluid or oil used in your operation around equipment where there's leaks, equipment where there's overspray, in areas where there's repair and maintenance, in or outdoor liquid storage, or if there's a compliance requirement. And again, with requirements, with compliance or OSHA is usually a recommendation that you use some sort of spill control, absorbent, spill kit to keep your facility clean and free of possible areas where there could be a slip and fall. EPA regulations, you want to keep your area free from fluids or aggressive fluids, meaning a waterway. Those are really the two bodies that govern this, but they're really making recommendations. It's up to you to select the right product for that control issue. Folks, I usually use this slide for our distributor partners, right? But it's also important to kind of know as an end user, what you're looking at. And we used a facility layout here, a factory layout, because that's where we're working mostly. But you can relate it to just about anywhere you work. It could be you know, a store, or a grocery store. It could be a school. It could be a lab. It could be just about anywhere. You're going to have areas where you have possibilities of spills. So if we look at this slide from the 6 o'clock position, or the bottom position in the center, that's your facility. And if we went to interior bulk fluid and exterior bulk storage, areas where there could be a possibility of a spill, that's an area where you'd want to use sorbents. Around machinery and equipment, again, for areas where there could be leaks or overspray. Surface cleaning and disinfecting. Disinfecting less, but surface cleaning or keeping surfaces clean. You can use sorbents for that. A lot of times for machine wipe downs, sorbents are used because they're very durable and you can use one to cover a lot of area. Shipping and receiving and warehouse applications or operations, folks, happens all the time. A forklift comes around a corner, pops a drum, and then you have a pretty major spill. A lot of times you're going to see spill kits in these areas. Just make sure they're maintained and full. Production and assembly and maintenance walkways and tool cribs, again, all areas where there's a possibility for spill. A lot of times you'll see in these areas folks that are working on a workbench like to line their workbench with something. Perfect application for an absorbent pad or roll to cover that up and leave it in place for a very long time. Keeps everything nice and clean and neat. Folks, this is actually something I look for when I'm visiting an end user. And we go in and it's not like, oh, you're doing this wrong. It's kind of like just recommendations. There's not really a really wrong answer. There's just ways that you can use these more effectively and better. I took these pictures about, it's got to be just over a month ago. I was traveling in the Midwest with a distributor partner at a very large manufacturing facility. And we have some of the business there, but we don't have it all. And we are working with this distributor to grab some of that competitive share. And we're looking at the way they're using some of the competitive product out there. And again, if you look at the pictures, and if we're looking at it left from right, you see an area where there's a piece of machinery, and they have some sorbents bunched up in a corner. And what they're trying to do is collect oil from a small leak in that corner. Where really, if they laid those pads down flat, they get better saturation out of them. I understand why they're trying to shove them in there, but if you look at that one on the front, that was going to be going into the recycle bin right after that, and it's not even wet at all. And then there's areas right around here, if you can see my cursor moving, where there could have been oil getting into that area, and they had this pad laid out here way too far away. So again, kind of in the middle of nowhere, where they have this pad over here in this corner that's oversaturated and leaking past, where they could have had a sock in place there to do the job way more efficiently. Center slide or center picture, kind of the same thing. Again, this tray around this machine was getting full. They have pads around it. They're bunched up. They're not absorbing properly. If they put a sock around that and then maybe the pads on the outside, much better application. They would have lasted a lot longer, have been fewer change outs, so on and so forth. Sort of the same thing around here, just kind of strewn everywhere, not really doing the job. And what earned us this business with this end user is when we got to this drum, and you see these yellow pads, and they're using yellow pads in this case not for a has application, but just to pick up oil and coolants around machines, which you could do too. That's fine. And we noticed, and I could tell by the top view, they're not very saturated, not very dirty. And this was a 55-gallon drum. So we had asked the maintenance manager if we could, just as an exercise, swap those pads into an empty drum. And we did. And as we got to the bottom of the drum, you could see they were getting less and less dirty, believe it or not. And we ended up going through 300 pads. So 300 very lightly used pads. And if you do the math with who this competitor is, and it is the industry leader, They're selling these pads to this customer for over $115 a bale. So think about the money that was just thrown away. It was nearly $400. And at that point, we were able to secure all of their balance of their sorbent business just by adding some socks, doing some things. We gave them some, you know, education on how to lay them out properly and things like that. But that's something to consider in your operation. Are you using these things properly? And if you think that you're maybe not, give us a call. Talk to your local distributor rep and invite us. We'll kind of give you some tips. We'll have a little fun with it, and hopefully show you some more efficiency and cost savings. Folks, that is about it. I was able to cut this down to 30 minutes and leave time for question and answers and get you guys out of here in less than an hour.
All right. Well, we love that. We love a nice, concise webinar. As Scott mentioned, now is the time to get your questions in. The Meltblown team is here to answer any questions that you might have. What I like to start off with, Scott, is there any resources, any places we should be going, looking to make sure that we have some more tangible information that we might be able to look at or pass around?
First I would say your AD distributor partner that probably invited you to this event, I would talk to them first, but certainly go to our Meltblown Technologies website, which will have all of our different product categories, families, everything we talked about. We also have a resource center that gives some on-demand training. So it's actually a virtual walkthrough of a small factory, may give you some tips on how to use sorbents properly.
Okay, I love that. Kevin's actually
And I
putting
have just
some
shared the links.
awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Another
Absolutely.
question, and this is something I've never thought about, and hopefully you have some insight, but are there any fire hazard concerns when using these products, especially in oil-based or other hazardous material-based issues?
That's a great question, Samantha, and we get this quite a bit, believe it or not. Um, I'm gonna say no. Polypropylene is flame retardant, and what I mean by that is it's not going to hold a flame. It's not flame resistant, but it's flame retardant, so it'll self-extinguish. There is no combustibility issue where in some cases you may use a product that has a more organic feel to it, organic property like a cellulose or something like that. That would be an area of concern if you're leaking something that can cause immediate combustion, like maybe an acid or something like that. The organics, although they're nice because they're organic, they can burn and they can catch fire. Melt blown polypropylene will not. It will not hold a flame, so it'll self-extinguish. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for reminding all of us the difference between flame resistant and flame retardant. I think it's always good to have a good reminder there. So some of more questions coming in here. A lot of them you covered, most of them probably you covered, but I want to ask them anyways, just to make sure that we all keep all the information top of mind. This question is, where would you use an oil-only product instead of a universal product inside a manufacturing facility?
That's another really good question. You guys are really testing my mind on a Thursday afternoon, but a lot of times you'll see oil only used inside where maybe there could be trap oil floating on top of a trap, and they're trying to separate that oil from a solvent or a water, where they'll float an oil only pad on that trap to collect the oil off the water. So in areas where you're skimming maybe oil from a different fluid indoors, that may be the case. Samantha, I've gone through facilities where um, they're using oil only product on the floor around machines, and it's not wrong, but it's only collecting the oil. So if there's coolants coming from that machine, it's repelling that off. It's not going to absorb it. To me, it also looks really dirty. So you have footprints on it, it gets dirtier quicker. It tricks the mind to think that you need to replace it. So that's why we tend to go with universal on the indoors rather than oil only.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's a couple more questions on universal sorbents, so I'll kind of combine them together. You did touch on this a bit, but is it is it better to have more universal products on hand? Should we be grabbing for those first? When is it appropriate to go spill specific as opposed to universal?
It's really it's dependent on the customer and their plan. A lot of times you'll have some sort of spill plan in place and talk to your safety manager about this or environmental manager. Universal is good in any case, and I'm going to be bold enough to say that because it's going to collect anything you need, whether it be a chemical, a water-based, or an oil. When you get very specific, it's usually about the warning. So to me, and we'll use hazmat, if you're in a facility where you have an area that's just regular, manufacturing, this, that, and the other thing, and you're just collecting, oil and coolants coming off machines in regular maintenance, but you have an area where they're using chemicals maybe to clean parts that they're making or something else, stored in large quantities, you may want to have a hazardous material spill kit there because that's telling the employee if there's a spill here, it's not only possibly a slip hazard, but it could be a hazard to your respiratory system or something like that. So if you see green, stay away. It's a chemical spill. Hopefully that answered that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I am going to test your knowledge some more on this Thursday afternoon, but how much foot traffic can a cover stock sorbent typically handle before it starts tearing?
That's a good question. It's kind of you got to kind of try and see, believe it or not. There's not really a rating, but it depends on the application again and the amount of employees you have. If you have employees in an area that are walking on it constantly, you're probably gonna, change it out more frequently. But if it's just standard foot traffic, every day, I'm gonna say the intervals are usually around 4 weeks.
Okay. Now what about your the portable products if we're on the go? What about disposal? Do you have any common concerns, issues, or questions that you feel are often coming in?
A lot of times if a customer is asking us about a disposal program, they're not aware they already have one. And in the cases with manufacturers, they're creating waste, whether it be hazardous or not hazardous, all the time. A lot of times they already have a waste program in place where their waste removal company is coming and taking away their used oils, their coolants, possibly dirty water, and also collecting solid material like rags and things like this. Your sorbents can go away with that waste company as well. 9 times out of 10 they do. And again, very high BTU value with polypropylene absorbents. So our product usually goes waste to energy. It's burned into to use to fuel energy plants.
Okay, well, that's cool. Good to know. Check your facility. You already have a process, or you might already have a process.
I'll say one more thing, Samantha, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of times when we get asked that question, we always refer back to the safety manager to check state regulations because not every state is the same. And for my guys, we cover multiple states. So I might have Craig, for instance, who's in the Midwest covering 7 states. Well, there could be 7 different, regulations. So we don't really recommend. We always kind of refer or say, hey, this is how this product is usually taken away, but kind of refer to your own agencies to kind of really dictate that because there could be some stricter laws in some states than others.
All right.
I should have said
This
more strict, I think.
sure, yeah. So check your regulations, check your facility. So this question is about one of your slides, so I'll give you a moment to get to what they're asking about. This says, what was the image on the pad slide on the top of the drum? So if you know which one I'm referring to, let's dive into that.
So that is a what we call a drum topper, right? So that is a standard universal pad that goes on a drum. It has 2 holes cut out for the bungs on top of the drum. A lot of times when folks are dispensing from drums with pneumatic pumps and things like that, they want to have a drum topper there to catch any residual that can come off of the pump. And that is a product we do offer as well.
Okay, perfect. Um, I know you covered this, but how are socks different from booms?
Great question. That's a great question. So a boom, again, and it's around the language, and people call these things anything from diapers to they refer to them as the specific brand name, and they may not even be using that to anything else. So a boom is typically a product that is used to skim oil from water. So in cases where it may be a spill on water, you'll see boom like this clipped together to contain oil to one area. It's usually light sheen that's on top of water. It's going to pick it up, absorb it, and then they move on. A sock is used more for indoor, and it would be, and sorry to skip around. I know this is being taped, but a sock would be, something gray, maybe white, but made to go in an indoor application around the base of a machine. Um, it doesn't have the hook and the netting. It's just a standard sleeve and filled, and it's a lot smaller of a product. It's not a 5 or 8 inch diameter. It's a 3 inch diameter.
Okay, good to know. Now, one of our last questions here, and use your best discernment, but who, aside from our decision makers in our facility, should we be talking about to make sure that we have the right amount of absorbents, or the right amount of sorbents, right type? Who should we be talking to? How do we make sure that we're getting the right information and the right product?
Within the company or within your supply chain or supplier channel?
They're specifically asking about within this facility.
So usually to me, it's the folks on the floor that are actually making the decisions or using the product. So it could be an operations manager, could be a environmental or safety manager, transportation manager. It could be a machine operator. It could be a janitor. It doesn't really matter. I like to get the buy-in from folks that are actually using the product. And buy-in's probably not the right phrase, but the kind of the thumbs up, right? That like, hey, this is going to work for us. This could work actually better. We're believing what you're telling us that we can downgrade and do just as, good of a job and help save the company money, things like that. So I train my distributor partner reps to talk to the people on the floor about the right product. And I've had a lot of cases where we'll be talking on the floor in a larger group, could be myself, a distributor partner, a manager, maybe a principal of a business, and you'll have people flow over to the conversation from the floor because they want to be sure they're getting the right thing. And they're the folks that are using it, right? So you want to be sure they're using the right thing.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable insight, is to actually talk to the people that are using the applications and not just the people that are spending the money.
Right.
My rule of thumb is to always make sure that you are having those conversations with the people around you. You're going exactly how you said, into the floor, knowing who's using what product. And if you have an issue, don't go with just the issue, go with the solution. And thankfully today we've learned a bunch of solutions. So now you have those things that go hand in hand. You have the issue, you know what's going on, and now you have a bit of a solution and how to solve that problem. All right, Scott and Kevin, before we wrap it up today, is there anything you want our audience to take away, keep top of mind so that they can be successful in their sorbents journey?
For me, and thanks, Samantha, for the question, and thanks for the time today. I enjoy this one very much, and I enjoyed the questions. This was a lot of questions today, so I'm really, really excited about that. Um, folks, I mean, we manufacture the product, but this is what we've been doing for a very long time. So all I ask is that when you look at a company where you're going to buy your sorbents from or your distributor partners, get them involved. Ask them the question. 9 times out of 10, this isn't top of mind. It's really not. It's probably, you know, 5, 6, 7 on the list. Allow them to come in and just do a quick survey, look around, maybe bring us in. We'll be nice and quiet. We won't make a lot of noise, and we'll give you some ideas. And we might actually leave and say, hey, boy, everything looks great here. We don't really think we can help you improve on anything. We're really honest about it. we're not a huge company. Everybody that works here has been in this business for a very long time. And we've been doing this together for a very long time. So we have the industry knowledge and experience. We help make good decisions. And if you give us the opportunity, we'll help you streamline and make your spill operation a little bit more effective.
Fantastic. Well, Scott, Kevin, huge shout out to both of you for being here today, and as well as AD for allowing you to be here today. We had a lot of really great feedback. So thank you for popping those links in the chat there, Kevin. Make sure you check those out. Make sure you head over to Meltblown. Make sure you reach out to your reps so that you know that you're doing the right things and going to the right places. If you have any other questions, we will connect you with the Meltblown team. So make sure that you reach out to us, and we will be sending out a link to the recording to everyone in a few days. And Scott, if you want to give us any other assets or handouts along with the slide deck, please feel free to send that over to us as well, and we'll make sure that we connected with the audience.
Great. Thanks, Samantha. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin, for building this. This was really good.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for attending, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Have a great day. Bye guys.
Thanks,
Stay
everyone.
safe.